made it on the stage without falling, so we've passed the first test.
So we fortunately and unfortunately have a little slide deck prepared for you. It's very much our impulse to not speak to the slides and get through the material successfully, but to get to the point in the time we have where we can hear from you and speak with you. Our background as community researchers means we're more interested in your opinions than our opinions. So yeah, Paula and Patrick, if we flip to the next slide, of course it's important for us to say...
I'm going to be the glamorous assistant, Emma.
Oh, I didn't see that. There you go. Okay. As you'll find out from our backgrounds, which we'll introduce in a few moments, you'll understand why there's this level of semi-tech incompetency. So, look, it's obviously important to say to begin with, and you'll see this as we peruse the material, to say thank you to our participants, those who took time out of their lives to contribute towards our research. Also, a massive thank you to Gareth and Conla for bringing us to this stage, and thank you to all of the attendees for our session today. Clearly there's something which has sparked and stoked your interest. We think what we have to present is interesting, especially framing it within the material we've heard today. So with that said, let's crack on.
Just to introduce Pat and myself, Patrick decided to apply for this research for Northern Ireland. The Ada Lovelace Foundation had said we only want 2 groups. He done such a good application because he was determined to have the voice of Northern Ireland and Belfast people's voice heard. So we sort of broke the system from the beginning. And they interviewed us. We obviously said the right things and there'd no choice but to let 3 areas through. So we touched lucky only because it was important to us that Northern Ireland and Belfast people's voices are heard. I have to start a wee bit of background. Pat's the brains, academic, Oxford, Ulster University, teaching AI, people's...
Hold on, time out. Paul is saying I'm cerebral and clever. I'm pressing this green button for the next slide like I'm a squirrel expecting a peanut. So am I... Oh, there we go. Sorry, Paula. Carry on.
Right, so he's the brains. And I suppose what I bring to it is I'm the mouthpiece. And I said to Gareth before I started, Gareth, am I allowed to call you all out? And he said, absolutely. And I want to know, where was the diversity in all your panels? I have a whole lot of white, middle-class, educated men talking tech to us today. The diversity in all the rooms has been fantastic. But I'm going to call you out because I haven't talked to a bunch of techies before. It makes me quite nervous. But you're probably 15, 20 years behind everybody else, folks. So do you agree with me or not agree with me? Was that agreeing with me or not agreeing with me?
I was, sorry, I've been thinking about America for some reason.
Yeah.
But yes, it was
But it's important for all of us, and it's important for me to be authentic if we're bringing a group of community voices together in Northern Ireland, that you use your own community voices. The diversity's in the room's brilliant, but use it. It's there. So off my soapbox. Really, I'm not a tech background. I'm the mouthpiece. Worked voluntary community sector for years. Loved that we were able to bring together a group of diverse people. We had different ages, different backgrounds, different colours, different creeds, different sexual identity. We had people who knew AI, didn't know AI, who thought it was a conspiracy theory, who use it every day in their life. And we were very proud of the people who stepped forward in Northern Ireland to have their voices heard.
And before you call us out in reverse, those individuals were invited to be here and participate today, but they're probably too busy working, busy caring, or busy dealing with some of the kind of troubled or difficult circumstances they have in their life. But we will certainly feed back to them what we've brought to you today and what you've brought to us. Yeah.
So backgrounds, they were doctors, nurses, healthcare workers, they were trade union reps. We done really well in getting a lot of people in the room. They had totally different opinions. As I say, some of them knew AI, some didn't. We had a young lady in the audience who are in the project who had just graduated with first class honours in an AI master's. Her degree was aerospace engineering, and then you get people like us trying to teach her about AI. But ours was around the ethics. What did people worry about it? What did they feel about it? What were their concerns? Where were they happy for us to use it? How did they want government to be drafting governance and looking at topics like that?
Yeah. And look, as a prelude to the research, obviously we had a number of online workshops. We obviously encountered and talked to our participants. But as you can see from the slides, it came as no surprise that post-Troubles legacy and matters of a divided society, irrelevant to the diversity of background, was a common theme. And maybe that's something which may come as a surprise or not a surprise to this group. Certainly when we heard Professor Michaela Black's comment this morning about that matter. Professor Black, thank you for joining us. You honour us with your presence. That very much stoked our thinking about how we present this material today. Paul, you're covering the green button. So what we asked our participants to do was not to kind of bleach or eradicate opinion, but just to reach an initial benchmark, was to put away their preconceptions, if you like, their biases, their prejudices around AI. And we sort of made that concrete with a kind of putting away a box as you see it in front of you. Without getting in immediately to their perception of the public good, of course, they saw AI, perhaps based on the intake that we had, from a sort of inclusivity, equality, and diversity perspective. But when it came to understanding the public good, that for them also very much centred on services, systems, but also power dynamics. And I think that's something we'd really like to talk about with this group once we get to the end of our presentation. And we were also really sensitive that we didn't want the participants along in their conversations with us to be a kind of echo chamber. So that's why we kind of put away all of our ideas to begin with. And then on the next slide, you see a little bit of a visual representation of this. Can I have some WD-40, please? Does nobody know what WD-40 is? It is a wonder.
You're showing your age.
So as you see there on the slides, hopefully the graphic isn't too small. You know, this idea of establishing to begin with what we thought or they thought was good or bad about AI. Of course, within the bulk of the research, there's a QR code at the end. You'll be able to see that content more successfully. Okay. Also, if we look at this particular material here, in regards to one of the exercises we pursued, striving for those to be interactive rather than purely conversational, we asked them, and maybe do ponder this for a little while, we asked them to kind of imagine the future and what kind of headlines they would like to see in regards to AI and the efficacy of AI or the success or benefits of AI. And these are some of the things which came back to us. Now look, we're sort of positioning you here because we know you are individuals with immense influence in this sector. So for us not just to bring this material to you to inspire your actions in the future is important, but actually the messages that the individuals in our research wanted us to bring to you are not just pertinent within these graphics, but pertinent with what follows next with Paula.
Okay, he wasn't being stupid. So as Pat's covered, we tried to get everybody to be neutral in the room, to leave their bias at home, but everybody to be neutral for part of the programme. So this wasn't just us three in a room. There was a whole system behind it. So it was part of the research with the Lovelace Foundation, but also another group who came in and done online training and coaching for the participants to say to them, okay, you forgot what you know about AI, your bias is at home, everything else is there. Let us teach you how the system works. And I have to say, for myself, my big takeaway was the environmental impact. And in the workshops I've been in today, it's only been mentioned once, which probably shocked me a wee bit. But when our participants started to understand what the environmental impact was of asking somebody a question, or the gentleman who did cover this morning, he talked about it takes more energy to search a photograph. I probably thought there'd be a wee bit more conversation around it. It's maybe just not in this room, but our participants learned what are the jobs in it. Do you know, they see the front end that all of you in this room or some of you designed very, very lovely. For people like me, I have dyslexia, and some people are bringing it very clean in the front end, which is me living my best life. But so they learned about what's behind it, what jobs are behind it, where the data comes from. Also learned, and probably this who interesting, who benefits from it. So we spent a lot of the workshop working out who does benefit. Do you know, there was one of the young women from Northern Ireland who is Polish. She's been here for years. Her mummy settled here. Her mummy didn't know English, and what they use it for every day is translating her mummy's doctor's letters into Polish, because she's saying, why should I have to tell my mummy bad news? And why should I know my mummy's personal information when actually, now can I guarantee you it's done 100%? I can't. But it took the caring responsibility or the bad news responsibility away from her to allow her to be the carer and allow her not to be able to force her mummy to feel like a child again. So they had a lot of different ways of how they're using it. They looked at the ethics around it. They looked at the environmental impact, which they were very shocked about. And then we done another class. So it was an organisation in England then had done it with us. And they spent 3 different sessions explaining to them how the system worked.
So just to build on what Paul has said, I think if I pinpoint or draw your attention to any 2 things on the slide, it would be those first 2 points. So when we came to begin to discuss that intersection between the public good, how AI should act on behalf of the public good, the perspective of the group generally was to understand that AI could be a highly destabilizing force, one that was mostly advantageous to the corporate or commercial world, but they counteracted that or counterpointed that with seeing AI holistically and understanding its impact possibly across their lives, especially the lives of their children or wider families. And for them, AI could and did hold the potential to be not just democratizing, but to accelerate and improve their lives around social mobility. And I think that's very much something which came to the fore, especially as they raised matters of skills, EDI, the environment, and so on and so forth in regards to sustainability.
We've done another wee exercise with them and said, okay, how do you think we can use it? And we'll cover that a wee bit in a second. But another exercise we done was, who has the power? And we spent a good part of the day doing, who do you think has the power? Nothing fancy, no slideshows, no nothing. Marker, bit of paper, on the wall, blue tack. And basically who they thought had the power was very diverse. It didn't start with government, it ended with government. Who they thought had the power, first of all, were men, which I was surprised at because it was 50-50 in the room. The next set of people they thought had the power, who do you think it was? It was yous. They believe you had the power over their life. And I know, I was shocked as well. They believe you have power over their life. So you actually came just after men, just after men, but the government were over here. And they believe tech people, tech companies, people who had knowledge how to use technology had the power to make or break their lives and to help either change it or not change it. And they believe you had the power and the choice of whether you're going to help them or not. Mm-hmm. Would anybody in this room be surprised to know people in Northern Ireland thought you had the power?
Yeah. Can I ask you to raise your hand if you feel powerful, completely off script? But now, look, we're not getting into topics of elitism or exclusion, but it's important for us to bring that perspective in, how the research supports that. And that will lead us on to telling you a little bit about the results of an exercise that we did and reading a letter to power.
So this was the exercise. You'll be able to see it better on the slides, and also then on some of it's in the report, but it's quite interesting. Another one that shocked me was young people were very, very low on their list of who had the power. So we started who's the most powerful and who's the least powerful, and the young people were the least powerful, which I found interesting. So part of the letter was, or part of the exercise was, we sat down, who has the power, who do you think has the power? Yous were part of it, but they then started to write letters to power, and it was done in groups. So the workshop was who has the power was done in groups, but the letters to power were done individually, and it was part of it was tell them what you really want them to know, and write it down. Some people done it in pictures. Some people done it in newspaper cuttings. We had a neurodiverse room that some people preferred to speak it and not write it. And we allowed for all of that in the room. But Pat's going to tell you some of the letters to power.
And look, this is a little kind of visual sample of those particular letters in letter format. You can see with the sticky notes who the audience was for each of those individual letters. I think also what's really interesting about these letters to power is that we sort of didn't let them off the hook in the aftermath. We ran a scenario or a series of scenario workshops after this, where we actually gave them a challenge to solve real-world AI problems. And in a few moments, I think you'll be interested in how they approached that. Perhaps that will give you some comfort as the people who hold power. What did they do with power when it was imagined in that situation? So yeah, just see the next little one there. Yeah. So look, if you're willing, let me read one of these letters to you. We're not going to apply any interpretation to it other than present it to you. It'd be interesting to hear when we finish what your thoughts are. So, a letter to power. To those shaping the future of AI, my name is X, and I live in Northern Ireland. This year, I took part in the Making Good research project, which asked ordinary people like me to think about what AI for public good really means. I don't work in tech. I'm a parent, a carer, a neighbour, a migrant, an asylum seeker, someone who's neurodiverse, who works in a union, who works in a bank, who's a mature student, somebody who wants a fairer society for my children and my community. That's why I want my voice and voices like mine to be heard. For many of us in Belfast, the phrase public good isn't abstract. It's about fairness, dignity, and trust. It's about making sure that new technologies don't deepen the divides that already exist, divides of wealth, health, housing, and opportunity. Our place knows too well what happens when people feel excluded or silenced. We cannot afford to repeat those mistakes with AI. What I learned through this approach is that people don't want AI imposed on them, they want it shaped with them. We expect AI to serve all of us, not just the powerful or the wealthy. That means building systems that are pro-social, equitable, and protective of the most vulnerable. It means recognizing that different communities have different needs and ensuring AI reflects that diversity. Please remember that place, that's in italics, matters in Northern Ireland. History, conflicts, and inequality still shape our everyday lives. If AI is to help us move forward, it must be designed with sensitivity to those realities. Otherwise, it risks repeating harms rather than healing them. So I ask you, policymakers, developers, researchers, when you make decisions about AI, keep us all in the room. Listen to carers, to young people, to older people, to those on low incomes, to those living with disability, to those often too often overlooked. We want AI that's ethical, relational, and responsible. We want AI that our children can grow up trusting because it is rooted in equality and inclusion. From Belfast, Northern Ireland, I add my voice to many others. AI must be a revolution, not for the many or for the few. It must be a revolution that includes us all. Now, let that brew and stew for a few moments. Perhaps we pause for queries or questions.
I have to say, probably majorly disappointed that we put people like Mr. Musk in a stadium and gave him an audience, and then all of a sudden they think that he is one of the greatest powers in AI.
Yeah.
And they wrote a letter to him.
We have to be more responsible who we make represent AI.
And the community we assembled called that out almost instantaneously. Yeah. I think, look, what's important is you couldn't imagine a more lucid, insightful set of comments. But what we've heard today is about the movement of AI, the community of AI. These are the current and future users of AI. And to not include these insights will actually make corporations, businesses, SMEs less competitive and have less edge. And I think that's a really important lesson of the research.
And here we've run out of time. I'm scared they're going to start shouting at us. She'll come in here and lift us out. But we're running out of time. But I suppose part of the takeaway was don't forget about their voices. But actually, you're their voices. If I ran a poll in this room, yous are the same voices that we listen to. Yeah. So my ask from yous and from the business owners and from government, they're obviously all busy today, because they're not here, they should be here. But my ask is they listen to yous. My other probably thing is, if I get on my high horse again, is around the governance. Do you know, who is it made for? Is it made for people who are well educated, who can afford it, who can afford to go on the training courses, and who it's accessible to? If any of you can do it, that you can help 3 or 4 other community or voluntary groups learn to do it, that will be your paying it forward. But look at the governance, look at who is it there to serve. Is it there to serve people just to make money, or is it there to serve me as a person? Is it person-centred? So I want the governance. Some people need to Google the governance. My other thing was, you need to go and buy Andrew's book. Andrew, I'm looking some commission wherever you are. Look at the governance. Look at what is coming and what you need to wrap around it. Have you any takeaways?
Like last one, if there's any balm to the provocation that this hopefully is provided, we posed similar type scenarios to the participants. They themselves struggled to find answers. They didn't have the answers, but they knew the answer was to find the answers together. So I think that's a really important point to make. But look, other than that, squirrel, squirrel, peanut, peanut, we can, of course, share the details of the research if you reach out to us directly. There's the QR code, which delves into this in far more comprehensive detail. Sorry to run over, and do catch up with us across the day or tomorrow if you'd like to know more.